Welcome to the Bentonville Film Festival.
Thank you.
Now, your short, tell me a little bit about it.
Heritage Day is about a little girl named Evie who's around 8 years old who dresses up like her estranged grandmother, a Holocaust survivor, on Heritage Day at school and becomes increasingly obsessed with what her grandmother went through. And ultimately, it's a dark comedy that explores how we reckon with the dark parts of history.
Thank you. Are you friends with Rachel Bloom, the lead? Because it was so good to see her as a normal mom. Usually she's bouncing off the walls with her characters, and you made her normal-ish.
Yeah, no, I mean, she's incredible, and it was really cool to see someone that is known, for some really zany comedy to step into something a little bit more grounded. It was important for me to cast an actor that not only was Jewish, but was a real mom as well, since there are such deep motherhood themes rooted in the narrative. And Rachel fit both those bills. We have a lot of mutual friends, and we're in this sounds kind of quaint, but it all comes back to motherhood and roots, but we're in the same online mom group, which is a private closed mom group. I joke that it's like the Illuma Mommy, because we all kind of like look out for each other and support each other. But I had actually seen her perform at a nonprofit fundraiser that a friend of mine was doing a couple weeks before I was in the process of doing outreach for the film, and I was like, there she is, like Jewish, mom, funny. And so I sent her an email, which I had from before, and she agreed. So we lucked out.
You got a really good performance from her. You really did. Because I was like, ooh, she can do mellow, at least a little bit.
Yeah, it's really nuanced. I mean, I've seen the film way too many times, and I never got sick of watching her.
Now, what inspired the story? Because it's so unique.
Thanks. So Heritage Day is based off of an incident in my own childhood. So my grandparents were Holocaust survivors. Both my grandparents were in Auschwitz. My grandmother, Evie in particular, was there for 3 years as a teenager, which is an unusual amount of time to be in that specific concentration camp. So I had a presentation, I think it was around 4th grade, to dress up as a relative and do a presentation as them, like present as them and be them. And up until that point, my parents had done a pretty good job of protecting me / sweeping my heritage under the rug a little bit. Just getting broadcast safe nuggets about what the Holocaust was. But there was still so much I didn't understand. And because it was kind of kept behind closed doors, it became this deep fascination for me. And for some reason, when I got that assignment, that was the first time my grandmother opened up to me. I can still remember sitting on the phone, talking to her, and she just suddenly started telling me all this stuff. And it kind of blew my mind open, and my parents didn't let me do what Evie does in the film, which is dress up as someone in the Holocaust and do a presentation as her. So the film explores, what if I had? What if I had done that and kept going? But ultimately, I am exploring the same feeling that I had as a kid, which was like, well, this is a really interesting part of my own heritage. Why are we erasing it? But also I understand role playing or dressing up like someone that's enslaved is super problematic. But, I'm not answering any questions, but I am raising them. How do we talk to the next generation about this dehumanizing parts of history, especially if it's your own heritage, without traumatizing our children? Because the more we talk about it, I think the more that's how change gets made, right? That's how we stop repeating the same intolerances, because we have to talk about it in order to make the change.
I was really impressed because you kept the humor in a very dark subject, and it could have gone either way.
Yeah.
And you really walked that tightrope. Are you happy with what you ended up with?
Yeah, I think it's funny. It's a specific. Well, first off, I'll just say that that's something that pervades all my work. I love bringing humor to unexpected topics. I love bringing comedy to difficult topics, because I just believe that, when you come through the back door and you enter something that is traumatic or dogmatic or upsetting, and you know, you handle it through comedy, it kind of changes the way you think about it. It shakes up the sediment, and it becomes more approachable. You know, I don't even want to necessarily go watch like a big drama about the Holocaust, or, you know, a documentary about it, because it's so upsetting. But tackling it through the third generation perspective and through the lens of comedy, you're able to get people to think about it in a different way. And so you're bringing it to light, but, you know, in a sort of through the back door kind of way. And I think that there's a real power in that. I think that's also, comedy is how we heal. It's how we process. And then, towing the line, that's tough. And I do think it's audience specific. I mean, we're just beginning our festival journey, but, you know, there's one line that Rachel improvised to Scott Michael Foster, where he's like, I could take her to Temple. And she goes, I feel like if you walked into Temple, people would be very nervous. And to a Jewish audience, people crack up because they're sort of insinuating that he's so Goyish or Aryan that people will be like, oh. But, you know, in a non-Jewish audience, people are like, oh, I don't really get it. So there is like a little bit of like a
inside joke.
There is like some fine lines with the comedy where I think it's like I can see where it lands, and sometimes it's like a little bit of a, oh, that was niche.
But I love your throwaway lines, because you had so many of them, and with the child experimenting and keep going, that she was just obsessed.
Yes.
Are your kids old enough to obsess about things like that?
Yes. So I have a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old. My 7-year-old has like deep phases. Like, he's currently having an obsession with birds, and like all he wants to do is like draw birds. But, you know, that's what kids do. It's how they learn. It's how they process. And you can become obsessed with things. And, you know, becoming obsessed with your own heritage makes sense. And it isn't just specific to the Jewish community. Unfortunately, slavery and genocide, this is an omnipresent thing in history. So a lot of people deal with this. Like, how do we talk about, you know, the dark parts of our own heritage? Like, oh, this really horrible thing happened.
I loved I don't know where you found the kid. How many kids did you have to audition to find that child?
So, fun fact, we did no auditioning for the film at all. It was all offers, which was a little bit nerve-wracking because you don't quite know the dynamic or how people are going to be. But I did use like a lot of the ethnicities and the you know, the characters. I made sure that the casting was aligned. So, like, for example, Sierra Katao, we wanted a character that was both Chinese and Japanese. So I specifically started looking at actors that were both of those things, because it's just too awkward to have someone talk about their heritage so specifically in a film and then have that cast someone that it's, you know, a mismatched ethnicity. But Vivian Lyra Blair is a prodigy. She's incredible. She's in the new Boogeyman that's out in theaters right now, if you want to go see more of her. She's also the young Princess Leia in Obi-Wan. But I worked with her when she was 6 years old. She's now 10. In a video for Scary Mommy, and it was, again, a comedic short on gun safety, and she was just kind of otherworldly. Like, you could tell that she was doing this not because of her parents, but because she wanted to do it. She held her own in a way that like most adults don't as a 6-year-old. And I kept in touch with her and her mom over the years, and they knew I wanted to do this project. And then when I wrote the script, I sent it to Vivian and her mom, Liz, and they were like, yeah, we want to do it. Like, Viv wants to do it. And Vivian actually came on as a producer, and she was a total champion in making the film happen. She brought in the costume designer from Obi-Wan and, you know, all different things. They were very instrumental in getting it made. They kept just pushing me to get it done. They're like, what's going on with Heritage Day? You have to make it. Vivian just wants to do it. So
she's a producer too, then.
So she is like the youngest producer.
I was going to say, yeah, maybe she's breaking a record right there.
And she's a genuine interest in working behind the camera as well, which is just so cool. I mean, I think that's what Bentonville is all about, right? You know, it's like she's an incredible actress in this, and she handles really dark material, you know, talking about like burning people in ovens and cremation and all this stuff, and she handles it with aplomb. But not only that, She was genuinely interested in the making of the film because she wants to be a filmmaker. She wants to write and direct and tell her own stories, and it starts that young. And she's stepping onto a set full of all female filmmakers, tons of mom female filmmakers, people of color. She's seeing this diverse set, and she's getting that exposure and going, I want to do that. I can do that. So it's, symbiotic.
That's awesome. How long did you take to shoot?
3 days.
That's good. So 3 days. And what about your post-production? How long did it take that?
Post dragged on due to lack of funding, because as many short films do, you're kind of just like, get it in the can, which makes no sense because there's no film cans anymore.
Yes.
But you're just like, spend the money and we'll deal with it later. Just get it shot. So we literally spent all of our money to get it shot. And then we hit the holidays, and we actually raised money on Seed and Spark, which tends to really just promote other female filmmakers, and we raised our money for post through crowdfunding.
That's awesome. They'll be very happy with how it turned out.
Yeah.
And the way you wrote it, I do want to see more. You left us hanging, and I hope people get to see this short as well. Where do you want it to land? Where would you be happy seeing this land besides the feature?
Yeah, so we did shoot it as a proof of concept as well as a short film in and of itself. So we do hope. The big goal would be to get distribution, for it to live somewhere, just to be accessible, because film festivals are so lovely, but they're a bubble, and so ultimately I would love for it to be parked somewhere online that's accessible, because it does bring up a lot of questions about how to teach the next generation and how to not whitewash history. And then, we'd love to make the feature and dive into what is really a story about 3 generations. We just sort of tap into the 3rd generation, and she's a very strong presence in the film. I don't want to give too much away,
but we never see her, but she's there.
Exactly. The feature would very much explore her in the film. So I think you would have a beautiful feature between 3 different generations of women, kind of like a Little Miss Sunshine thing, where there's that special connection with the grandfather. Mm-hmm. We haven't honestly submitted to a plethora of festivals because we just want to be really specific this time around.
This is a good one.
Yeah. I love Gina. I actually directed Gina in a pilot presentation that was her brainchild a couple of years ago. I guess it was the same year we did Heritage Day. So it was just, that's all such a blur. COVID, oh my God. But it was such a gift to be able to direct her, because she's been such an inspiration for me growing up and as a female filmmaker. I mean, she's just such an incredible champion.
Yes, she is.
Of women and beyond.
I mean, she made this to be a safe place for people to grow and to show their things and hopefully do bigger things. And I hope the bigger thing for you is a feature of this.
Thank you.
Whoever sees this likes it. I mean, bottom line.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm glad. It was one of those things where I would tell people the pitch, and
it's
they'd be
hard
like,
to pitch.
Oh, that sounds depressing. Like a little girl that's obsessed with the Holocaust, that sounds sad. And I'm just really glad that a part of me didn't listen to those voices and just listen to the part of me that was like, this story is inside of me and needs to come out. Because once I did it, people were like, oh, I get it now. There is humor in this. There is awkwardness. That's how, children rebel against the generation to sort of, rethink the way that we think about things. And that's part of growing up, is like having your kids push boundaries against you as a mother, and that's how we continue to grow as humans. We don't necessarily know everything as moms. Don't tell my kids that, but we don't, and I think that there's a real learning curve for Rachel Bloom's character in this, to learn, like, as a mom too, like, they're teaching each other. It's not just like, okay, the kid's doing something that's uncomfortable. They're both figuring out how to be in this world.
Well, what I liked, and like I said, it's a short, so it's hard to get so many layers, but you managed to do it, because you didn't just have the mom and daughter. You had the mom, and then you had her and her husband.
Yeah.
You managed to get that in there too. And do it with humor, because you never look at the dad's side of it with a newborn.
Right. Yeah. I think you can tell that I'm a mom filmmaker watching it because there's, just the struggle of having a baby and what that does, and the relationship dynamics, and how sometimes, parenting can just take over your life so much that like your marriage kind of just gets, lost. And, I think it's important to kind of just keep those nuances and storytelling alive.
Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.